We want to get started, everyone, so whoever's planning to take a seat, if you can begin to make your way to that section. It feels so good to see the crowd. Good evening, everyone. Can I hear good evening? I heard some good evening. Good evening. My name is Erica Riggins. I'm the Public Information Officer for the City of St. Petersburg, and this presentation really is the first and only opportunity to have as a community for us to hear from the four developers, the four firms who submitted proposals in person at the same time on one stage, and that's very exciting, before a final decision is made and announced at the end of the month. So I want to point out, though, of course, everyone couldn't be here tonight. If you know someone, or if overnight or when you leave and the ideas are still marinating in your mind, if you want to give input, you can do that beyond tonight. Between now and January 23rd, we have 6 city facilities accepting in-person comments. We also have online stpete.org/gasplan as another way for you to submit your question or your recommendation, because we want to make sure every voice is heard before a decision is made. It's very important to us. We have dozens of staff members here from the city who will be gathering your input. They are roaming about if you have any questions, and they're going to help share with our mayor and the city teams. We're evaluating the strengths and the weaknesses of these four firms, the four proposals. And with that segue, I'd like to introduce our leader who will be listening with a critical ear tonight before making that final decision later this month. Please welcome and show your appreciation for Mayor Ken Welch.
Thank you, Erica, and good evening. How's everyone doing? Happy New Year. I really want to thank you all for being here on this very exciting evening for our city. This community engagement session for the redevelopment of the historic gas plant district is really a significant milestone in our process. It is really exciting to see so many folks who are interested in moving our city forward here tonight. Now, at last count, we had more than 700 people who'd registered, and we have most of the folks here in person, but we're also virtual via Zoom. Over the past year, as you know, we focused on inclusive progress and the need for everyone to have a seat at the table. It's core to our mantra of "We are St. Pete," and that's why we are here tonight, to give our residents the opportunity to hear from the development teams, ask questions, and provide us with feedback. This is a transformational project that will benefit all St. Petersburg stakeholders for decades to come. And it is also our opportunity to honor the promises made to the gas plant community and move us all forward in the spirit of economic inclusion. We have strong proposals from 4 talented development teams, and your input is crucial to helping my administration identify the strengths and weaknesses of each one before making a final decision at the end of this month. I'm extremely thankful to all of you for giving us your time and your insight tonight. Your participation is important and your voice matters. I also want to thank our city council members who are here in virtual. I did run into Councilmember Copley Gertis. Councilmember Gertis, stand, wave, way in the back. Councilmember Gertis. I know Chair Gabbard is watching virtually. Are there any other elected officials, council members here tonight? Can't hear up here. Councilmember John Muhammad is here. Councilmember Muhammad? Back on the other side, okay. Good. Thank y'all for being here tonight. I also want to recognize our staff who have done a tremendous job throughout this RFP process. Rob Gertis, all the city team, just wave your hand to stand. Let's give them a hand. And now to the reason we are here. I want to introduce the 4 master developer teams. If you could just raise your hand or stand and be recognized. 50+1 Sports. Heinz and the Tampa Bay Rays. Nobody wants to stand. Must be too much turkey or something. I don't know. Restoration Associates. and Sugar Hill Community Partners. Thank you to all of the teams. Thank you for believing in St. Petersburg and the promise of the historic gas plant district, for doing the work and stepping forward to be a part of this historic and generational project. We look forward to hearing your presentations tonight and the Q&A. Thank you all for being here. Let's get to work. I'll turn it back over to Erica. Thank y'all.
He's a lot taller. I have to bring it way down here for me. So this is an exciting part. I want to talk to you about how the presentations will work, how the format will work. So each developer, each firm will have 20 minutes to introduce their vision and their plan for the historic gas plant district here on stage. We'll have a few minutes to transition between each presentation, and then at the end, when all 4 teams have concluded their pitch to us, they'll join us up front here, right below the stage, for a group Q&A session. And that's important because we have such a large group tonight, nearly 750 people RSVP'd. We're leaning a little bit on technology to help make that Q&A session efficient and effective. So if you haven't already, we need you to scan the QR code with your phone. I believe we have it up here. It'll allow you to type in and send us your questions. We also have teams with hard copy comment cards walking around as well, so that you can write that down and submit it to our city teams and hand them to us directly. They're taking in all of that information, our city teams, sorting the questions based on any common threads, if they're there, and then they'll hand me the questions to read at the end of the night to ask those questions to our 4 firms here right below the stage. All 4 firms will have mics to answer those questions. So time now for the big moment we have all been waiting for. We want to start in reverse alphabetical order for the presentation. So starting first, we'll have Sugar Hill Community Partners. Second up, Restoration Associates. Heinz and Tampa Bay Rays will be third. And fourth, 50+1 Sports. So we want to begin and allow Sugar Hill Community Partners a chance to come on stage and begin their presentation.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Johnson, part of the Sugar Hill team. This is a portion of our team, and we are super honored to be here. In my other life, before being a developer, I was mayor of the city of Sacramento. I was president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And the reason why I say that is, as a president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, you go around the country and you visit a lot of cities. We didn't come to St. Pete. This is one of the best kept secrets. Maybe not for you guys, but I get the hunch there are going to be many people starting to come to St. Pete. I have fallen in love with St. Pete, the community, the interactions, the vibe, the charm, the breweries, the energy, incredible. So I want to just commend you on that. Secondly, I grew up in an area similar to the historic gas plant district in Sacramento. It's called Oak Park. In my community, there were broken promises, promises not kept, no different than what happened in the historic gas plant district. So for us and me, this is personal. This isn't just about doing a mixed-use project that's going to be cool. It's got to have all those elements, but we've also got to make good on the promises of the past. So part of what we want to do is honor the past and lean in to the future. I want to thank the mayor for his leadership. It's not easy being a mayor anytime, but especially now. And his leadership, creating a process that's inclusive and transparent, giving all of you an opportunity to be here today, is remarkable. I also want to thank the city council members. I have not had a chance to meet a lot of the council members, even though I've been here probably 20 times over the last couple years. I too want to thank city staff. You guys have done a great job with the RFP process. It's been very thoughtful and very professional. City staff never gets enough credit, so give them one more round of applause. I also want to commend and compliment the other 3 developers and presenters. We got a chance to review what they're presenting, very qualified, experienced, all great choices to choose from. The way we looked at the RFP process to set the context is, it wasn't just about the 86 acres. The city gave the Rays 17 acres. So it's really about the remaining 69 or 70 acres. That's kind of how we viewed it. Number 2, we believe in the RFP process, we will not only meet, but will exceed the scope of the RFP. You'll get a chance to see that when it comes to affordable housing. You'll see it when it comes to making the community whole. You'll see it when it comes to jobs and entrepreneurships. And you'll see it when it comes to wealth building. And then lastly, in terms of the RFP process, our commitment is to St. Pete, and it's not contingent on any other developer or presenting group today. We hope that we're part of partnering with the Rays on the 17 acres. That would be awesome. It'd be a win for everybody, we believe. But at the end of the day, we've got to make good on the promises that we made to the community over the last couple years, and we plan to do that. Can we go to the slide where you can see our presenters? These are the folks that are going to present today. They're committed, they're capable. We know we have a limited amount of time. Over there, afterward, we finish our presentations. We'll be in the alcove if we can answer more questions. For us, 3 things. This is a community-driven vision, and that's really important for the folks in the audience to know. So our presentation will be under the umbrella of a community-driven vision. Yes, it's got mixed use, key design elements, like to integrate a Rays Stadium in our proposal. Number 2, you're going to see a proven team that's diverse. You're going to see a proven team that's inclusive. And then lastly, you're going to see intentional equity. And we believe at the end of the day, that's going to be our differentiator. This slide here talks about our vision. Transformative project that's the most equitable, inclusive real estate development in the United States of America. This is the kind of project that comes around once in a generation. St. Pete deserves nothing less than the very best.
Good evening and Happy New Year, an important new year for the city of St. Petersburg. I'm going to speak a little bit about our team and share some unique features about it that I think we'd like you to leave here with tonight. One, the team that you saw, kind of stand up when we were announced today, we're the only team that participated in the RFP process in 2021. So that means that we've been at this, a lot of these folks that you've seen stand up are volunteers. We've been at this for 2 years. So that's 2 years of experience, history, community engagement that we've had on this project. Tonight's a great opportunity for the 50+ members of our team to share with you some of the feedback that we've gotten from 150+ community meetings and how we've updated our proposal. We're not here just to repropose the project that we presented in 2021. We've updated based on that community feedback and the principles of community-level design. Sugar Hill has also strengthened our team. We've added national development firms PMG and KDC on the housing and office side. Those firms are best-in-class national developers, and they're really joined our team to enhance what is already a deep local and national talent group on our Sugar Hill team. That includes Ducon, McKissick, Integral, and Moody Nolan, I think the country's largest African-American owned architecture firm. Finally, I want to touch on something that Kevin started with and kind of is the basis for why we're here tonight. So a number of years ago when Kevin, then Mayor Johnson, I should say, was sitting in a position much like Mayor Welsh, and he was presiding over a major urban renewal project in the city of Sacramento where I was the development lead for a sports-anchored mixed-use project. And at that time, Mayor Johnson really asked some tough questions and held us accountable for a project that moved very, very quickly in that city and has been finished and has received much acclaim. And I think one of the most exciting things for me personally, and Kevin and I have become good friends and business partners since that experience together, is that he's a principal and decision maker here. Kevin will be with this project. He will be making decisions for this team and this community as we go forward. And that is a really unique opportunity for us because he understands the pressures of being in the seat of a mayor on a major project like this. And he's prepared to do the right thing to make sure that we as a Sugar Hill team remain obligated to the commitments we make to you as a community. Collectively, the Sugar Hill team has developed and worked on over $25 billion of projects across the United States. In my 30-year career in real estate, is one of the most inspiring and diverse teams that I've ever worked on a project like this. We are Sugar Hill partners, and we have the passion and the financial and development capability to deliver an extraordinary gas plant district project for the community of St. Petersburg. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to David.
Thanks, Todd. I'll just talk briefly about our sports capabilities. I think we all know that whether or not the Rays stay in St. Petersburg is yet to be determined. We certainly believe it would be a benefit. Would like to see that happen. And significantly, this is very familiar territory for us. I used to work for the Houston Rockets. I was the project executive on Toyota Center. I ran the building the first 3 years it was open, and we've gone on to deliver. Our team has collectively delivered over $5 billion worth of major sports venues. That includes Chase Center for the Golden State Warriors, Citi Field for the Mets, Barclays Center for the Nets, and TQL Stadium for FC Cincinnati. So we understand what it takes to help set a partner up for success or to collaborate successfully with a partner. In this case, we hope the Rays, and we know what it takes to successfully develop mixed use around a building like a ballpark, or in this case, the ballpark plus the ballpark village on the 17 acres that Mayor Welch has set aside for the team.
So you see these two words, diversity and inclusion. These are developers here. We have a proven team. We're living our values. It's diversity at every level. Designers and engineers. Diversity from top. Go back. Designers and engineers, diversity from top to bottom. You see Kurt Moody, Moody Nolan, the largest African-American architecture firm in the country. You see Jarrell to my left. You went back. Give me the clicker. I'm just kidding. Point guard. So Jarrell local. So the one thing that we also want you to know when you see these slides kind of going through, you're going to see a theme of diversity, you're going to see a theme of local and national. Our team is made up and comprised of local roots, people who have long-standing, deep ties in this community. That is the only way you can build a project that I think we can all be proud of. Over 50% of our team are from the St. Pete local community. And that's something we're extremely, extremely proud of. We have a number of pastors that are here in the audience. I just wanted to say, pastors, if you wouldn't mind just standing real quick, I just want to thank you for your support along the way. We all need a little prayer, and they've done an incredible job day in and day out. So to the clergy of St. Pete, we also want to say thank you as well.
So one reason that excites me about this project as a local minority general contractor is that diversity and inclusion, it wasn't about checking a box for my developer client. It wasn't about checking a box for KJ or for David. It was about making up a team that diversity is the fabric of who we are. It's what we do, it's our way of life. Consistent with the city's desire for our business and community to resemble our demographics of the city, we've set two key goals that I want to talk about. Number one, 20% on the design and engineering side. A project of this magnitude that can do a great thing for our community, from young people, from people within the community, from small businesses, future designers, et cetera. So 20% from a design and engineering standpoint, 25% from a construction and operation standpoint. We're very proud of these goals, not only because we think they're executable, but the key differentiator for our team is that we already have the members of our team that are executing or exceeding these goals throughout the Tampa Bay community, throughout the state. Not only are we already executing these goals, but members of our team are already executing these goals together on other projects throughout the Bay Area and throughout the state. Another thing I'm proud of is that the 3 minority general contractors on our team, we've been responsible over the last 5 years of awarding over $250 million in contracts, awarding, not consulting, awarding over $250 million worth of contracts to local, small, and minority businesses within the Bay Area. And I'll pass it to Scott for affordable housing.
Thanks, Ernie. I want to pivot for a second and talk about our affordable and workforce housing plan. We want to thank the mayor and the city for making this a priority, not only of their policies, but also of this RFP. Additionally, we think the citizens have come to realize that this is one of the most important issues in our city. In fact, in 2021, when the city was doing community outreach to determine how to spend the city's $45 million of ARPA funds, the respondents ranked this as the top issue for our city amongst a group of very important issues. We agree that this is the most important issue in our city, which is why we've slated 50% of all of our residential units to address affordable and workforce needs. Additionally, this works out to be about 16% of all the square footage that will be built in this enormous mixed-use project. On the next slide, you'll see numbers that tell a story that show that we're on the right path. So over the last 10 years, the city has grown in population and it's grown in jobs. But where we have fallen short is providing affordable housing options for current and new residents. Exhibit A is 65 units that we built in the Skyway Marina District that opened last year. The current wait list there is over 2,700 households, which equates to about a 130-year wait to get into that building. So what happens when current residents and new residents cannot afford to live in their community? Well, the answer is that they start to leave, and that's started to happen. We think that the Florida Policy Institute got it right. It's not affordable housing or economic development. It's affordable housing and economic development. It's both. It's both because we're talking about the people in our community who are the very most important people to our economic engine. We're talking about nurses and first responders and teachers and hospitality and service workers, including those that work on the Trop now. So 2,600 units is a lofty goal, but we've put together a team that we feel and we know can achieve it. We know that because Blue Sky has been joined by PMG Affordable and the St. Pete Housing Authority. We are doing this in the community now, and we know because of that, we have the ability to get it done in the future. We are creating a team that will build Class A workforce and affordable housing that will fit seamlessly into a mixed-use neighborhood.
Good evening. John Hope Franklin, the preeminent historian, was an annual visitor to the city of St. Petersburg, and he talked about the beloved community. And one of the ways I believe we can achieve and work towards that is investing in artists and art. And the investment in the artists is a direct opportunity for them to not only enhance and reconnect and reimagine and even repair the landscape that we find ourselves living in, but they can do it with a lot of understanding and heart and passion. One of the great things about the community partners of Sugar Hill Community Partners, they put the community first. And one of the ways you can do that is give opportunity not only to art, but to artists. Thank you.
As previously stated, we have been working on developing our vision consistently for over 2 years. We've used that time to develop and refine our team and our plan, but more than anything, we have used that time to listen. As Todd mentioned, we have held over 150 meetings with all types of people in our community: educators, faith leaders, community advocates, business owners, neighborhood associations, even artists. People with lived experiences in, on, and around the historic gas plant neighborhood and Tropicana Field. We have learned from every conversation and have already implemented much of their feedback into our plan. True community outreach is a journey. It's not a destination. An ongoing dialogue throughout the life of the project with our community will create a sense of ownership over the process and result in a development that truly belongs in St. Pete. And that will be absolutely crucial to its viability and its success.
Good evening. A lot has been said about the importance of preserving the history of the historic gas plant district, and we certainly agree. What makes us unique with the Sugar Hill team is that for the last 4 years, we've had team members working on the Zion Cemetery Preservation and Maintenance Society project in Tampa, Florida. Has a lot in common with the site that we're looking at here in St. Petersburg. We know how to develop a memorial park. We know how to do it. We want to bring that knowledge to this project.
And we'll do next. What a beautiful hall to be able to be and talk about making a city. More important, restoring and remaking a city is probably more appropriate. And I'm representing all these people here who have put together a plan that is so unique. Apparently we're out of time, so I'm going to break it down to, I can't explain the plan, but I can tell you what the approach is. And the approach is, most of all, to be St. Petersburg and to learn from all that exists and its history. And that's the key. No formula, no prototypes. Do what's unique to this one unique place in the world. And that's what this plan is about. The next slide talks about the second important part of our approach is history is a positive force. If you follow preservation in America, it's where you create value. It's what people like most. So bringing history back has become a positive way of creating development and placemaking. I got 1 minute left. And the third piece, the last slide, is that it's the public realm that matters. And if you think about St. Pete, this is all about outdoors. This is a city of wonderful climate, walking, and nature. And this public place is, we have so many interesting places. I'm done, you're saying I'm done, okay. And just to end, we think all the public benefits and the great public places that we're making, and I hope you'll look at this double-sided sheet to see them, can all be done in phase 1 with the baseball stadium. You don't have to wait to realize this whole restoration of the city and bring it all back. It goes in phase 1 with baseball, not afterwards. Thank you.
So we know we're running short on time, so we want to say thank you. I'll talk a little bit about intentional equity in the Q&A period. So again, on behalf of Sugar Hill and all of us, we say thank you.
All right, thank you to Sugar Hill Community Partners. We are in our transition period, just a few minutes before our next presenter takes the podium, and they're making their way up now. One quick reminder, we have the QR code up. Again, for you to submit your questions, you can use your cell phone, or you can also use a comment card. And we have Restoration Associates here now to begin the next presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Welch, this is a great process. It's been transparent, and we at Restoration Associates are honored to be a part of it. I think this is tremendous. The sharing of ideas, the competition of ideas. We are you. We are local stakeholders. We've been here, we live here, we've been here for a long time, some of us, and we intend to be here for a long time afterwards, win, lose, or draw. This is important. This entire project is a Tampa Bay, it's important to the entire region. Next. Can we get the next slide up, please? Next slide. Little technical glitch there. All right, so what are the three differentiators for our team? The first is that Major League Baseball is a regional asset. What affects Tampa affects St. Petersburg. What affects St. Petersburg affects Tampa. We're in this together. And I want to talk directly to you today and to the taxpayers about options and what that means and what the impact to your local tax dollars could be and where the money is going to come from to pay for a new stadium, because that has not been identified, folks. So we can talk about new stadiums, and we can talk about equity, but we have to identify the dollars first, not have great plans predicated on dreams, hopes, desires. We share those desires. We want a new stadium too. We love the Rays. We love the ownership. We want them to stay. We're advocates. The second thing is, let's get out of the 20th century, please, and transform this development into a transit-oriented development. Think Tampa International Airport. Think Florida. This is not downtown Chicago. This is not downtown Houston with cars choked with traffic. We want to remove the traffic. We want to eliminate the conflicts. We're going to talk about intermodal centers and what that means and why other cities are ahead in the process. This is not an act of Congress to remove the great divider, 175. They're capping off these interstate spurs all over the country. So don't think it can't be done. The third thing is, why is our name Restoration Associates? We're here to restore the neighborhood that was destroyed by 175 as a divider, and we want to make it a uniter. We want to reconnect the community back up, and we're going to show how to do that. We're going to get specific about how we intend to do things and how it's going to get paid for and what it's going to affect you as a taxpayer. Next. So who are we? We're local stakeholders, and we are philanthropists, and I'm not going to name names, okay? We're going to talk about equity and so forth and diversity. Monies have been spent in this community by our team and dedicated to local worthy causes. We have a track record for the last 20 years of doing that. And some of those members are Onyx, Dr. Karen Patel, Invictus, who is represented by Paula Rhodes here, who's going to talk about attainable and affordable housing. Brennan, who's going to talk about job creation, local job creation. And the next thing is Friedman, who is a self-storage developer, and you could say, well, why do we need self-storage? Well, because we're going to have up to 5,000 units. Where are they going to put their furniture? It's a great first step. And the next is, and the last is us. We are professional master developers. And you ask, what's the difference? We're not in it for profit or risk. We're in it for a fee basis, and we're cutting out the middleman. That's an important aspect of cutting costs and making housing affordable and attainable here. Next. Okay, so I don't want to talk too much about this phase plan because I don't want to get into the technicalities. We can describe this later, but look at the red area. That is an intermodal center. What is an intermodal center? It's a giant parking structure that turns into mixed use at the ground level with interconnections between the north side and the south side. And I think the mayor will understand this because he's been here for a long time, as I have, is that interstate was a divider. And we're looking to reconnect the north side with Campbell Park and areas to the south and reconnect this community up. And that is a specific pledge. Moving on. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about how long, whether it's 2 years or 5 years. We've been doing this for 14 years. This was first RFP, this Tropicana field, 14 years ago, 2008. One of the worthy competitors was one of the respondents. What has happened in 14 years, folks? Nada. Why? 3 times this has been RFP'd, but show me the money for the stadium. There has been no money for the stadium. They're going to ask for the taxpayers for the money for the stadium. The taxpayers probably are not going to provide that. The hope now is that Hillsborough County will continue their CIT tax on a voter referendum in maybe 2024. But guess what? That won't be ready in time for the expiration of the lease on Tropicana Field. The mayor deserves options. In 4 to 5 years, that lease expires. Clock is ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Okay? When that lease is up, what are you going to do? Where are the Rays going to go? Are they going to go to Tampa? I'm sorry, but it's not going to be ready in Tampa. And I've got that on pretty good information. What about some other city? They're not going to be likely ready either. So where are you going to go? The answer to that question is you need an option B. If you don't have a great, you may like that beautiful house across the street, but you can't afford it. So you do a fixer-upper. And we all have to live with that as local folks, and we know that. Next. So what are the options provided? Okay, you're going to say, oh my gosh, the Trop is a miserable experience. I have to park in a surface parking lot. I've got to walk in hot, humid air, and I come an imposing structure. It's not a fun experience, and I'm not going, okay? You walk around in the Florida heat? Come on, folks. We know as Floridians you don't do that. I don't think we want to walk around for half a mile with no amenity package available to us. So what we say is, look, what's really going to change the fan experience? Is it really just the stadium, opening it up, reconfiguring the box seating? No, it's the experience of driving into, and I want to orient you. In the lower left-hand corner, that's I-175. That is a spur coming off 275. They're being, in other communities around the country, that spurs are being capped off. This administration would welcome an intermodal center, which is parking for 6,800 autos, taking fumes, noxious cars, the conflict between pedestrians and fans and autos and neighbors, congestion, and taking off this property. And think Tampa International Airport. Think about that. You drive into a big garage, you take a people mover to one of the other airside terminals. It's a great experience. That will change the whole fan experience more than just doing Band-Aids on the stadium itself. So we're proposing an intermodal center, which is a critical component. So we've been through this process. We've seen it play out. A lot of us have seen this act before, okay? And you know, I'm not going to say it's insanity because I think the mayor did the right thing here. I really think that when we first proposed, and I say we, I mean RGA was part of the larger team, but we drove it. We proposed reinstating Williams Quarter. Back in the day, in 2008, there was a latent demand for 7,000 units. And guess what? They selected at that time a proposal to do a downtown mall. You don't have malls and retail preceding rooftops, folks. You got to have rooftops before you have retail. And we pointed that out, and we were accused of simply wanting to reinstate the neighborhood. We called it Williams Quarter. It was not well received. Think how we've changed. Think how things have changed. We've gone 180 degrees. Now we're talking about reestablishing the neighborhood. That's a good thing. So, will the fan experience change with restoration or renovation to Tropicana Field? You betcha. You won't recognize the place because, first of all, the way you get there is going to be a lot better, and you will be riding in a car that's automated and air-conditioned, and you're not walking around in the heat and humidity. I'm sorry, but we want to make this literally as auto-free as we can. We want a zero carbon footprint. I got a great question as a booth about this. This is going to be green design, sustainable design, and you can't have sustainable design that's choked with, think of it, when you go to the game, there could be 6,000 cars. If you're going to put 5,000 units on this site, where are they going to park? So let's get down to reality here. I love the diversity. Believe me, we are as committed as any team to diversity. And Paula will talk more about that in a minute. But I am now, how far am I into this? 10 minutes? Okay. I would like to introduce James Fogarty, who is a transit planner, to explain further our transit-based planning approach and get us out of the 20th century and into the 21st century. James?
Thanks, Bill. So when we were talking about this development and we're trying to figure out what can we do to really change the fan experience, how are we going to make that different from what it is today, and how are we going to provide an experience that can really be a positive one, we thought, you know, the first thing that they're going to do is drive to the site and park. That creates a lot of traffic. There's a lot of problems that are associated with that many cars for a development to this size. So we thought, you know, how can we make that better? Well, we came up with the idea for an intermodal center that is going to make driving convenient, but it's also going to help support transit options to connect to the site. Think Tampa International Airport. How many people have been to Universal Studios, for example? Let's see, yeah. They have parking garages that you don't really have to think about where you're going to park. You just go and park, and then a moving sidewalk takes you comfortably to where you want to go. But the other thing we wanted to do with this is figure out how we could really reconnect the neighborhood. How can we take the north side and the south side and sew them back together in a way that's going to undo some of the damage that was done when they built 175. Well, this solution does that beautifully. You can see it connects through in several places. It also opens up that access for both sides of the district to the jobs and destinations across the Tampa Bay area. And we talk a lot about affordability and housing, but there's another major expense that most households have, and that's transportation. So what can we do to make that transportation easier to a household that may not have access to a car? Well, this is one way to do that. Make it easy to access transit, make it easy for that transit to connect to other parts of the Tampa Bay area. Also, this helps to position the city for future transit alternatives when they come down the line. Let's say high-speed rail, which is planned to come to Tampa. How can we put the city in a really strong position to negotiate an extension for that technology to downtown St. Petersburg, which is where it really should end. And I think this is a good spot for that. So to talk a little bit more about affordability, I want to introduce Paula Rhodes and talk about the affordable housing and some of the different options that we have as part of this plan.
Thank you, James. Oops, a little bit shorter than the other two. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to talk about affordable housing more than anything else in the world, but I have 5 minutes, and there are a few things I need to cover. And I think that Scott McDonald, who's a friend of mine, did a great job describing the problem, which I think you're all aware of. And I think all of the teams are set and determined and qualified to address. We will provide up to 3,350 units. 2,350 units, are baked into our plan. The additional 1,000 units will depend on how the rest of the development plays out and the big overall question of what happens with the Rays is resolved. But there is potential for another 1,000 unit. These are affordable units, both in terms of your traditional affordable housing for tax credit purposes, workforce units, and then what I call attainable units, which are units that don't cost as much, but don't carry income restrictions or rent restrictions. They are less expensive because they're smaller, or there is some other aspect to them that makes them less costly to build, and they can be made available at a lower cost. So putting that aside for a minute, I want to talk quickly about what inclusion means, what equity and diversity and inclusion means to us. And it is something beyond bringing in certain members of a team and saying, we're checking these boxes, and I know nobody here is doing that, and I believe that firmly. No one is doing that. What we mean by inclusion is we want to open this up to anyone. If we were the selected team and we, in our sector of affordable housing, are given this opportunity, we would open this up completely to all of the local small businesses, the minority-owned businesses, the women-owned businesses that can't show that they've built thousands and thousands of units, because that's the first question they're asked when they seek an opportunity. So how do you ever amass those units and that experience if that is a threshold criteria to being selected? We want to give as many people in this community and in marginalized groups an opportunity to gain some of that experience, so the next time they go and respond to an RFP, they can say, yes, I do have experience. And I also want to point out that this is a phased project. Affordable housing is a phased proposition. So anyone doing this is not building thousands of units at one time. There's only so many that you can apply for and get funding for, because that funding is competitive, it's limited. So this is going to be phased. So just keep in mind, those numbers are by phase. And then lastly, I want to talk about community outreach in terms of adding people to the group that we're working with. It's not just giving people jobs. It's not just hiring subcontractors or suppliers. It's adding people at the upper levels to bring in development partners. And what we've done is left ourselves open to invite everyone to provide information on their firms and their capabilities, and let's get the best, most qualified group of local people and show them what local people can do. We're the local team. We're very committed to this. It's who we are.
So with that, I want to come back to the three differentiators. And if I can leave you with anything, I know this is going to be tough for you all because you're hearing all these ideas for the first time. You're seeing teams that are exciting, that have great ideas. But this is Restoration Associates. We are the home team, as Paula just indicated. We live here. We are taxpayers. So if you really want to retain Major League Baseball in this area, with all due respect to the Rays, I think there's a great team, and I want them to stay. We need to make it a Florida-based team, and we are the home team. We are you. Second point, we want to transform this into a transit-oriented development. You were watching a film that shows what it'll feel like to go from the intermodal parking structure that will replace 175, and I've heard some say that looks like a Great Wall of China. Not true. We have opened it up at ground level with 3 ceremonial entrances, what we showed on the first slide, that will reconnect the community. It's the uniter, not the divider, okay? So we want to transform this into a transit-oriented, 21st century, Florida-based plan. Next point. We want to restore the neighborhood that was destroyed. We have a 14-year commitment to that. Now, we called it Williams Quarter before, but that was just a piece of it. So at this point, I want to say that it's been a pleasure being a part of the process. I congratulate Mayor Welch. I think he's done a great job in setting this up. It's fair. It's great because we're getting feedback from all of you. The feedback I've got is don't touch my wallet. I'm a taxpayer to pay for a new stadium. And don't worry, we're watching your wallet. Number 2, we want it to be eco-friendly and green with a zero carbon footprint. And for the folks out there that support that, I think we have a great plan for that. And the third thing is that we want to restore that neighborhood. For goodness sakes. We think there's been great inequities created and it's happened around the country. So don't think this is unique. It's happening in other communities across the country where they're cutting off these destructive interstate spurs that divided up neighborhoods. And we don't want to miss the opportunity to apply for that funding and have an intermodal center here. Tampa's doing it. Clearwater got funding for 60% of their intermodal centers. It's happening all over the country. Let's take advantage of the opportunity to get federal funds. And this isn't some pipe dream, okay? This isn't a dream about a new unfunded stadium, which we all have, all right? This is about getting real money, and it's not affecting.
Yes. Thank you. And we have Heinz and Tampa Bay Rays up next. Before we have them take the stage, just a quick couple of reminders. Restoration Associates mentioned for many of you, you're seeing these presentations for the first time. So just a reminder, if you go to stpete.org/gas plant, their full presentations are posted online, and we encourage you to take the time to do that. Several hundred pages for each firm. That'll give you a full look at their presentation, since this is an abbreviated pitch at 20 minutes. Also, for any of you still interested, there's plenty of food available on this side of the stage as well. And our developers, they also have teams on this side of the stage that can give you more information and brochures to learn more about their plans. So up next, we have Heinz and Tampa Bay Rays.
Good evening, everyone. It is an absolute privilege and honor to be here with you all tonight, and we're sincerely grateful to all of you for showing up today to hear a little bit about our proposal. For those who I may not have met yet, my name is Brian Auld, and I am one of the presidents of the Tampa Bay Rays. I've lived in St. Petersburg for 18 years now, which is 3 times longer than I've lived anywhere else, so I mean it when I say that this is my home, and I'm incredibly proud to call it my home. I began my career as a 4th grade teacher in an underserved community, and it was there that I developed a passion for education and for equity. I'm proud to also share that my wife is currently the president of the PTA at North Shore Elementary, where my 3 children attend school, at least until my oldest heads up to Hopkins Middle this fall. I share all of this because, like the Rays, like the rest of this team, I am rooted in this community. And we understand the mission here. 1, respect and honor the legacy of the historic gas plant neighborhood. 2, create an equitable and inclusive development project. 3, guarantee completion and delivery of a new ballpark and phase 1 of construction by opening day of 2028. To do this, we have assembled a truly remarkable team with local, national, and international experience. This is a group with a proven track record of timely delivery of similar projects of this size and scope. We must have that here. This is a generationally important project. It will be complex and challenging to execute. There are only a handful of firms in the world that have successfully executed what we need here on this scale. And that is what really matters here: who we are, of what we are capable, and what we stand for. I'm truly proud to be a part of this team. St. Petersburg deserves this team, one with the breadth of local understanding, community focus, and such talent and experience.
Good evening. This is an amazing turnout for a truly transformative opportunity. I'm Michael Harrison, and I'm with Heinz. I've been with Heinz for 32 years, and I oversee our activities in the southeastern United States. As a developer with offices in 28 countries, 300 cities throughout the globe, we truly believe that the gas plant district redevelopment opportunity represents one of the best placemaking opportunities in the world. And we're truly excited to be here. As Brian noted, this is a complex project. It will require seamless performance in order to achieve the Rays opening day 2028 aspirations, mandate. As such, the Rays and Heinz have put together a team of best-in-class partners and consultants that can deliver on that promise. We have had a relationship with the Rays for more than 15 years. This will ensure a seamless coordination of the development of the new ballpark and the first phase of the project. We have worked with our architect Gensler for over 40 years on more than 350 projects totaling more than 39 million square feet of development. We selected Dante's Partners as our affordable housing partner. We wanted a partner who shared our values and our standard of excellence. And as you will hear from Bua, Dante fits the bill. We have worked with Kimley Horn, the Rays and our civil engineer, and Populous, the Rays ballpark architect, for more than 2 decades. In crafting our team, we have focused on local outreach and participation led by Andrick Frazier of Best Source Consulting and Gwendolyn Reese of the African American Heritage Association, amongst several other individuals that comprise our Community Outreach Advisory Group. As you'll hear from our team, this local outreach has served as the primary driver for our master plan and our proposal. Heinz has been active in Florida since 1985, and we've completed projects in St. Petersburg and Hillsborough and Pasco counties over the last 10 years. As you can see from this slide, Heinz has done multiple projects of this magnitude, but more importantly, as we head into uncertain economic times, Heinz has the unique ability to capitalize and execute this complicated project totaling more than 7 million square feet at more than $4 billion in development costs. We have already identified both institutional and high net worth investors that support our team and our proposal, and we're open to local investment from community investors. As you can see in this slide, Heinz has developed all of these program elements that are in our proposed master plan. It includes office, retail, multifamily, entertainment, and sports facilities, amongst others. It's important to understand that placemaking is more than just developing individual buildings. It's the art of integrating these uses into a place that everyone can enjoy, and no one has more placemaking experience than Heinz. Our founder, Gerald Heinz, was a mechanical engineer, and for 65 years, Heinz has been viewed as a leader in best practices with more LEED certified buildings and Energy Star Partner Awards than anybody in the country. We are the first developer in the U.S. to deliver our proprietary mass timber office buildings, and we are one of the few developers that have committed to a carbon neutral program by the year 2040.
Good evening. My name is Everald Colas. I'm the founder of Storin Studio for Architecture. Even as accomplished developers and architects, we know in the next 20 years, we need to hone in to our 2 most important skills, which is listening and then executing. As a person who calls St. Pete home and founded my business here, I have understood the power of the voices of South St. Pete. They know this site's history. Indeed, we call that storytelling. And what we do as technical professionals in its development, that will be story making. And we'll focus on that for the next 20 years. Even under the umbrella of structural racism, the gas plant neighborhood thrived. Indeed, as planners, as we studied the site, we see it as possibly the first early example of a 20-minute neighborhood. Within 20 minutes, you can get to your dentist, a communal fish fry, a church, and even a mixed income housing. And keeping with that same principle, we see our site as a future 20-minute neighborhood. If you look at the slide here and look at the reddish line going up and down, what we call the 16th Street corridor, the 16th Street corridor is us looking at the overall neighborhood and seeing how all the neighborhoods around us inspire how we do this project here. Our site is indeed a connector. So I'll walk you through the 16th corridor and how you can imagine it. As you walk along this corridor, you will experience a neighborhood grocer, business incubators, a space for nonprofits, and even at the 16 corridor, there'll be an underpass that's inspired by what you see at the Deuces, artwork in the underpass, lighting to enliven it and to make a proper connection back to South St. Pete, specifically Campbell Park. And as we move further and we're talking about public space, we have 14 acres of public space. And within that 14 acres, as you walk throughout our site, we will enliven it with working with the African American Heritage Trail, paying homage to our site throughout the whole 86 acres. So nothing is forgotten as you walk through it. And then we'll have spaces to slow down because we understand this site is sacred. So we have the Oak Lawn Memorial Park for you to slow down, reflect, and remember the souls that were here. The 1.9-mile connector that runs through our city from Northwest Edge District all the way down to Bay Borough, which is Booker Creek, as it hits our site, it becomes a place for us to talk about environmental stewardship. Indeed, as you go along, we will restore the creek. We will put an environmental pavilion there in partnership with the Tampa Bay Watch. And as you go further south on I-175, we will reskin that connection of the bridge. It will be another opportunity for us to pay homage and use that as an outdoor museum to talk about the site's history. And finally, as you get to Campbell Park, we will put a physical building with as a youth academy that speaks to us taking care of our children and having them understand what happens at the site in the next 20 years and having after-school programs to make sure they are engaged. And that also takes the energy of the existing skate park that's right next by.
Good evening. Dawn Gunter, architect, principal, and managing director of Gensler Tampa. Respecting Mayor Welsh's 23 guiding principles, we've coalesced those into 4 design drivers for this project. Our first and most heartfelt design driver is lifting up the legacy of the historic gas plant neighborhood through physical space, story, partners, and activities while showcasing local arts and culture. We are creating pillars for progress with our $50 million investment in intentional equity initiatives that will impact St. Petersburg communities that have not experienced equity and opportunity. Our second design driver is to create a transformational ecosystem that will directly address the broken gas plant promise of affordable housing and job creation. Upon completion, the annual impact from our development will total $1.4 billion and will create 5,500 jobs and generate $656 million in wages solely within Pinellas County. Most important for this community, the job creation and wage generation will begin at the commencement of construction, creating 1,050 jobs yearly during construction, and we've committed to a living wage as a baseline. Our third design driver is to deliver a state-of-the-art ballpark, which is again a pivotal element to the success of the mayor's stadium model. With the Rays as our development partner, this team is already underway with complex phasing, ballpark design by populists, and parking strategies required to ensure a successful opening season in 2028 and the ultimate Rays fan experience. Again, most impactful for our conversation tonight, this ballpark is being purposefully designed as an intimate community ballpark. It can be host to graduations and special events of all scales in both indoor and outdoor venues. Our fourth design driver is a connected, inclusive, and highly activated gathering destination for St. Petersburg. Our plan reestablishes the historic, walkable street grid and creates 14 acres of open space that stitch the site to the surrounding neighborhoods, including a series of art-inspired urban parks and plazas, and these plazas connect the site east to west. The Booker Creek Greenway will now connect the site north to south, which will be a restored natural environment. And most exciting, where these two paths cross, we have located the new Woodson African American Museum and the Booker Music Hall as cultural anchors on First Avenue. This will create a true physical and historical gateway to the historic gas plant redevelopment. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bua Benitier, and I'm the founder and CEO of Dante's Partners, a firm that creates and preserves affordable housing. Why am I passionate about affordable housing? Is because it's a personal story of mine. This is my calling. When I graduated from college, I realized very quickly that I could not afford a place to live in New York City. I was homeless in San Francisco for 6 months because I could not find an affordable place to live. And the same thing happened to me when I eventually moved to the District of Columbia. So, as opposed to complaining about the problem, I decided to become part of the solution. And in the 17 years that I founded my company, I'm happy to say that we have closed on 39 transactions, 39 affordable housing communities, which translates to over 7,000 units that my company has been responsible for building from DC all the way up to New York City, which represents over $2 billion worth of financing that we have utilized to come about the creation and preservation of affordable housing units. And what I am most proud of is the fact that I have over 100 people that look like me who are just as passionate about addressing the affordable housing crisis that plagues America. Specifically about our site, we have gone about creating 1,459 affordable housing units, of which 859 would be exclusively on-site, providing housing for professionals that are making between 50 and 120% area median income. And the best part is 90% of our affordable housing units will be delivered in the first phase. Thank you.
Listen, plan, act, repeat. These are the words that describe how we have responded to the City of St. Pete's Community Benefit Program through our Restorative Conversations process. Good evening. My name is Andrew Frazier, founder and owner of Best Source Consulting. After listening to the City of St. Pete through the Harvard Bloomberg study, after listening to the descendants of the gas plant in Lower Park districts, and after listening to organizations such as St. Pete Works, the Pinellas County Urban League, the Boley Centers, Pinellas Technical College, the Pinellas Opportunity Council, and the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation, the Rays and Heinz are providing $50 million towards restorative intentional equity for the citizens of St. Pete. Acting through our restorative ownership and occupancy process, we will provide affordable housing opportunities for 600 units off-site, with the majority of those opportunities falling under a home ownership model. Acting through our restorative conversations process, we will engage with the community on not only the physical development, but how the restorative intentional equity funds are being distributed and the programs are being managed. Acting through our restorative enterprise process, we provide mentorship, training, and financial borrowing programs for over 300 minority local businesses and a 10,000 square foot collaborative multicultural incubator. Acting through our restorative talent pipeline process, we will provide diverse supplier, technical, and remote internships for 300 students from this community. Acting through our restorative pipeline process, we provide funding for current educational programming surrounding South St. Pete and new educational infrastructure over 50,000 square feet of programmable areas, including a youth academy and an environmental pavilion. Finally, through our supplier diversity program, we will provide opportunities for a minimum of $500 million worth of business for local minority-owned firms. We will provide intentional equity for St. Pete.
Namaste and good evening. I'm Gwendolyn Reese, and I'm here to wrap up our team's presentation by telling you who I am, what I offer, and why I chose to become a part of the Heinz and Rays team. I'm a former resident of the historic gas plant neighborhood, a producer with Roundhouse Creative directing of a documentary dedicated to Reverend Watson Haynes about the gas plant neighborhood. I am the author of a forthcoming book tentatively titled Our Stories Matter, a history of the gas plant neighborhood through the eyes of those who live there. For more than 5 years, I have been writing the I Am column in the Weekly Challenger, documenting the stories, the people, the events, and places in the African American community from 1868 to the present. And lastly, I am the president of the African American Heritage Association, the only organization with the mission of preserving the rich history, heritage, and culture of the African American presence in St. Petersburg. I joined the Heinz and Rays team because they reached out to me. And after considerable inquiries, many conversations, much contemplation, and a whole lot of meditation, I decided to join the team because I was confident that this was a team I could trust, not just to talk, but to actually walk the walk. A team which operates under a self-imposed mandate of honesty and integrity, and a team comprised of people with the courage to acknowledge what they don't know and a commitment to learning from the people who do. And so we did. And on November 29th, we hosted a dinner for former residents, business owners, and their descendants to meet key members of our team, to ask questions, to share ideas, tell us about what matters most to them, which is for their lives and stories to not be forgotten, and to reminisce with each other about life in the old neighborhoods. These gatherings will continue because the Heinz Rays team understands that if we're going to make change, we need to talk to the people who need change the most. This is an ambitious plan, but the times cry out for it, and our team is up to it. The next gathering of former residents, business owners, and descendants will be held virtually at 6 p.m. on January 12th. There may be some former residents, business owners, and descendants in the audience. If so, we ask you to stand because we would like to acknowledge you. And on behalf of our team, I would like to thank you for being here tonight and listening to all the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have our fourth and final presenter and firm, 50+1 Sports, as they make their way to the stage. A reminder again, our team over here taking your questions. Many of you have not seen the full presentations. You have until the 23rd of this month to go online, stp.org/gasplant. You can submit any input, feedback, questions there, and our city teams will receive that and take that under consideration. So one more reminder. You can also, we have 6 city facilities where you can go in person and write down those comments or inquiries. And you see those comment cards. We see our personnel walking around with comment cards, so you don't have to use the QR code behind me. So another reminder. And I think we have our next team ready to go, so I'll turn the microphone over to them.
Good afternoon. My name is Monty Valree, and I am the owner of 50+1 Sports. When I came in earlier today, I got introduced to a couple of brothers, and someone said, this is Monty. He owns 51+ Sports. And one of the brothers said, well, I own 100+1 Sports. So I get that everywhere I go. You know, I'm very excited to be here. I've been in St. Pete. I live in Miami. I've been in St. Pete over 100 days over the last year and a half. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my company and why I think we are unique and why we're different. About 2021, I caught COVID really bad. Almost died. I lost 42 pounds in 2 weeks. And I was just basically bedridden for 8 weeks. And during that time, I had some time to reflect. And prior to that, in 2017, I was the only minority in the country that represented a company by the name of Oak Tree Capital. And if you're an investment person, you understand who Oak Tree is. Oak Tree represented about $630 billion. I worked on the infrastructure fund of $108 billion. So around the country, worked in aviation, transportation, and Oak Tree gave me the ability to go in from cradle to grave and work projects and build projects and basically put them together. And as a part of that, I met a couple people in my life in 2017 that really stood out. One was Dominique Ozan. If you know him, he's from Cleveland. He owns a very, very old construction company, family. And Dominique came to me in Kansas City and he said, I don't know if you know this, but you have an opportunity that a lot of African Americans have never had. And I think what he meant by that was that I had an opportunity to make a way for us. My company is called 50+1 Sports because of one reason. We require 50% minority, women, and veteran participation on every project we do. We are self-financed. We don't ask any city for money, state, county, federal, or local money. I believe that the taxpayers should not have to pay for a project that we do. While I was on my bed in 2021, one thing kept coming to my mind. With all the costs associated with COVID and everything that's going on, taxpayers are not going to want to fund billionaires' ballparks, NFL stadium, NBA arenas. So I put together a plan that basically said I would go out and find partners in the investment community, and I would come to different owners, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and I would offer a plan that I would pay for the stadium, and in return, I would take the land around the stadium, and we would develop that land, and we would share in the revenue. At that time, I heard about St. Pete. I had never been to St. Pete. I came down here, and I fell in love with St. Pete. To me, when I saw the mayor's request, the RFP, it really spoke to me. I don't do RFPs. I believe RFPs are a race to the bottom for minorities, and here's why. We are never the first people in the room whenever an RFP is put together. We're one of the last one. And when we do come into the room, minority, women, and veterans, it is a cost-saving event. It's what they call participation. And then what that generally means in the professional sports is about 3 or 4% participation. The Las Vegas Raiders built Allegiant Field, and they only used 4% minority participation. I was involved with AECOM in the Clippers' new stadium. When I got to LA, we only had 7 minority groups. And I'm from Chicago, and I know damn well there's more than 7 people that live in LA that can do the job. So for over a year, I interviewed over 120 minority firms, and we ended up using 35 to 37 firms on the Clippers stadium. It wasn't because they weren't qualified or because they didn't have the experience. No one had saw them. And I went through the list and I called everyone. I said, you have an hour to come down to the AECOM headquarters and explain to me why we should be working with you. I don't care about your credentials. I want to see, because if you're an engineer, you got your license from the state of California, like every other engineer did. So when I look at 50+1, again, we will not put a dime towards projects that don't have 50% participation. We will not put a dime towards projects that don't have 50% affordable housing. We don't ask for money, but we do share in our revenue. As you'll see in our slides, I am the only participant that considers the city to be its revenue partner. I'm not asking the city for money, but I am giving the city over 60 years, $8.9 billion back from us to them as a revenue share. I am doing over 3,600 affordable housing units. They won't be off-site, they'll be on-site. There's no need for being off-site. This is our community, this is your community. Everyone should get along and live together. And when I say this, I'm not saying this as an angry black guy, all right? I'm saying this because I'm the one writing the check. I'm the only one that's writing the check that look like me. I love St. Pete. I want to do something great for St. Pete. This is an opportunity, as the mayor said, for this to be a life-changing event. But it will not be if we do the same mistakes of the past. Where's the talk of job creation? How are you going to create jobs? When I travel around the U.S., when I go to stadiums, I primarily see women and minorities selling hot dogs. That won't work this time. Where are the business partners that are supposed to be involved in making money? You cannot make a community thrive unless that community can afford to be there. Somebody said, why don't billion-dollar stadiums impact communities? Well, they don't impact communities because you don't involve communities. So when you put 50% of a $4 billion project into a certain community, that community has that $2 billion. And with the $8.9 billion we're giving back to the city, you can create projects. You can create other job training other than the $10 million that we're putting in. You can make sure that all of our kids go to a junior college or where they want to go. That's money that the taxpayers don't have to pay that we're giving back to you. I don't need a slide, as you can see, but I'm going to use the slide. So I love this saying by Angela Davis. He said, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And if you don't own it, you can't control it. On our presentation proposal, we are saying the citizens of St. Pete should keep that 83 acres. Why give it to a developer? You can't control it when you give it to a developer. Look at the history of most developers. They get in, they sell, they get out. What's going to happen to the affordable housing once everybody sells half of the land? These are questions that we need to be asking. Hey, I don't down anybody. I'm just saying, if you're for St. Pete, leave it at St. Pete. Win or no-win situation by rewriting the rules. That's what we're doing every day. A lot of people ask me, are you a developer? And I want to say no. I'm not a typical developer. In the same way Tesla was not a typical automaker, but a technology company based on the electric battery, we are a disruptive real estate finance company that focus on minorities and represent minorities, women, and veterans. So what I'm telling you is that I'm up here not for ourselves, I'm up here for the people that can't speak for themselves. There's a glass ceiling in sports, and it seems that a lot of people can't break through that. I want to talk about our partners right quick. I've heard a lot of talk about how everybody has the only qualified team that's able to do this job. I have on the stage with me JLL, the #2 broker in the U.S. overall. $315 billion in global capital market transitions, 26,000 projects a year. And one I'm most proud of is that these are the guys that did Truist Park, did the Battery. The Battery is the flagship right now for Major League stadiums. I also have AECOM, the #2 design firm in the world, 360 Tampa-based employees, and these are all the stadiums that AECOM has been involved with in Hunt. That's a lot. I think they know how to do stadiums, guys. Kevin, you know black don't crack. Hey, I couldn't believe I could find that on there. You my brother, but look, that is Kevin Johnson as the mayor. And he is cutting the ribbon that AECOM designed, the stadium. So yes, it was a great statement. That's one of your crowning moments, and that's who I got on my team. Garcia. You know, for us, we are looking for women. I'm looking for the first woman to design an NFL stadium. That hasn't happened yet. I'm looking for the first African American to design an NBA stadium. That hasn't happened yet. I'm looking for the very first veteran groups to design a baseball. That hasn't yet. So for us, all of our designers and lead architects that are the ones that are designing stadiums are women, veterans, and minorities. I'm trying to prove something. I'm trying to prove that if you're given an opportunity, you can do it. As you can see, I'm unapologetic at taking a stand to level the playing field without having to politely ask to be heard. I believe that this opportunity that we have here in St. Pete can be the flagship for what Major League Baseball and all the rest of the communities in sports do. Mayor, it was an honor to see that you had the foresight to be honest and talk about the community you grew up in and where you wanted to come back to. But again, I tell you, if you don't have everyone in this community of all colors, of all races, genders, working on this project and benefiting, the true goal of success of this project is how many people are hired by small and women businesses, minority and women businesses. It's not about how much money you make, it's about how many people you hire, because that's what turns your community around. In Chicago, they have a program called the Chicago 5 Forward. I think everybody should go look at that. They took 5 minority firms in Chicago, and they came up with a study that said, we're gonna just inundate those 5 firms with contracts. And those 5 firms generally had 30 people. 3 years later, they all had 300 people apiece, and they put over $1 billion back into their own communities. This is what we're trying to do. Again, the difference, the city retains ownership. No city funding requested, $8.9 billion in revenue share, and $800 million towards a new baseball stadium. 50% affordable housing on site, 50% minority, women and veterans, $10 million towards career fund, and we are 100% minority owned. So let's talk about for a second why we don't see a lot of minorities and a lot of women and veterans on projects. We could stand up here and take a big picture and show everybody, but by the time you have to go to the insurance phase, and by the time everybody has to get bonded, that picture's going to have a lot fewer minorities. On the Clippers project, I think it took $75 million was the bond. You could take the top 4 minority firms in the country, and you're not going to come up with $25 million. So what I've done is work with AECOM so they can do an umbrella. That means if you're on this project and you're a minority, you can only do 3, but you require 10, we'll cover the other 7. The other big difference when we talk to community benefits is we offer if you work on our job site, you'll have free childcare, free transportation, and a free health clinic there. You know, if you get a good job, the biggest thing you have to compete against is childcare. So I think if someone's going to get a job and they're going to have a new way, working on our site for 4 or 5 years, having free childcare, transportation, and health care, that's a big win. You know, on our slide, we show both an open air and a dome stadium. I'm not sure what Brian and the Rays want to do, but if they want a dome, I'm prepared to give them $800 million for a dome. You can send me a card later, Brian. But this is some of our pictures. On the upper right-hand side, you see our technology center. And the technology center, I think, is very important because we can train the youth of today to get better jobs. I think we can also work with the city and the colleges around here so we can get a good apprenticeship program going and be self-funded. +1 Sports has the financial capacity and technical capability to deliver this. And this month, 50 Plus One Sports will close on $6 billion. We have a $2.1 billion project that is closing tomorrow and will be announced, and another project towards the end of this month. 2022 was a great year for us. We're looking really forward to 2023. Again, I just want to say to everybody that I'm excited to be here, but I'm also excited to be a partner. And one of the rules that I have is I don't think minority and women should have to be exclusive to a team. I think it's not that many of us, so you should be on everybody's team. So I'm putting it out there that if I win, everybody's on my team, including the Rays. Thanks a lot.
Okay, everyone, if we can all take our seats, we're ready for the Q&A section. We are ready for the Q&A session. Our developers are ready to answer your questions. And we'd love to make sure we have your full attention. We recognize some people had to leave. We want to be respectful of your time. All right. Think we're ready to begin? We mentioned to you there were multiple ways to submit questions. We received hundreds of questions tonight, and our city teams narrowed those down, looking for those common threads, and we narrowed them down to 3 with multiple parts, however. But all of the questions will be reviewed, and again, you have until January 23rd as you leave here and look at the full proposals to submit questions and feedback to us, to the city teams. So we have 3 questions. Each developer will have 5 minutes to respond. We have Tony here, keeping time. He'll give you a 1-minute warning for the conclusion. And for each question, we have 3 questions. There are multiple parts. We'll have a different team order, different firm order for each one. So I'll start with the first question. It's regarding affordable housing, financing, and phasing. What is the source of financing for affordable housing? Does your proposal rely upon federal tax credits that require competitive applications? How does this impact project construction phasing? What will you do if you cannot get the tax credits and competitive financing? And we have Restoration Associates up first for that response.
Thank you. It's on. So
Do we have the audio? He'll turn you up.
Okay. As far as phasing goes and sources of funding, let me first say that we are a small local development company. However, we are a joint venture partner with some of the largest players in the tax credit equity and financing market. Alliant Capital has formed a development arm, ADC Communities, and selected only 8 companies nationwide. We're one of those, and the third that they selected to joint venture with. So what I'm saying is behind us stands some of the largest, most creative, most experienced people in the financing world. And if there is a structure or a source available, we know about it. In my own personal career, I've pursued every kind of gap funding. I've encountered all sorts of different headwinds that you cannot foresee. I couldn't tell you now that there would be a tax credit exchange program that would provide funding when the equity market went away during the 2008 Great Recession. I couldn't tell you that Florida Housing would have construction housing inflation response program funding available, but they did that because the need arose to have that kind of gap financing. What we do at my company is we stay on top of where things stand. We get involved in shaping where things go. And as far as what we have planned right now, for the first 1,000 units, 400 of those will be workforce housing, which is not something that, at least at this point in time through Florida Housing has a competitive cycle. If I were in Monroe County, I would be able to take advantage of that, but they don't have it for this area right now. So that would be done through a combination of vehicles, but the principal thing we would be relying on would be the permanent loan execution through HUD, either a 221D4, 223F, financing that is lower interest, that is, has a longer amortization period, so it keeps the payments lower, and a longer loan term. So the thing about affordable housing is we don't throw off on these developments, and workforce too, as much revenue from our rents, naturally, as you would with another market rate development. But we have the same expenses. So there has to be a way to keep your debt service low. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And again, all I can say is we've done this many times. Now, yes, 9% credits are competitive, but we have set aside 2 different phases of 100 each, and those will go in, and this can be done simultaneously if we set up separate applicant entities and we obtain local government area of opportunity funding. That's a mouthful, but it simply means that the local government is putting enough money into this development to say, this is something we want to see happen. And they only give it to that development and no one else. We would like to request that funding from Pinellas County and from the city of St. Pete so that 2 applications can go in at once. Applications with that sort of funding are what Florida Housing has targeted for large counties such as Pinellas. So by doing it that way, we would stand a very good chance of having one of those 2 applications funded. They'll only fund 1 per county. So that would allow us to get started. Another thing that we would do to help with the timing and with getting other units underway is we would start on the non-competitive tax credit applications that are for 4% instead of 9% credits. And those are coupled with tax-exempt bonds. There's plenty that we can do to start moving the bond process forward. The 4% credits are a matter of right once you secure the tax-exempt bonds. They come directly from the U.S. Treasury. They're not competitive at all. What is competitive is the additional funding you need to make those deals work. And that is something that, again, there are multiple sources. SAIL is the one that comes through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
Thank you. We have Heinz and Rays for the question. I can reread it if you're, are you good?
Yeah, that was 5 minutes ago. So
yes.
I
will so again, affordable housing, financing, and phasing. What is the source of financing for affordable housing? Does your proposal rely upon federal tax credits that require competitive applications? How does this impact project construction phasing? What will you do if you cannot get the tax credits and competitive financing?
Awesome. So, again, good evening, everyone. Bua Benitier, founder and principal of Dante's Partners, a firm that exclusively is in the business of providing and preserving affordable housing units. So for context, number 1, what does affordable housing mean? And I say this all the time. Just because a Lamborghini is affordable to LeBron James does not mean it's affordable to me, right? So I'm in the business of making sure that we create housing that is affordable to professionals. So in order to do that, it means that the city, state, or county has said, I am deliberately going to make sure that you live in a place that costs less than what you can afford. Let me repeat again. The county is saying, I'm going to provide you with housing that costs less than you can afford. And this county is basically contributing resources to make that happen. So this is how it goes down. There are a plethora of financing options that are available that I have utilized over the course of the last 17 years to help produce 7,000 affordable housing units that I own, that I have financed with my existing lenders and hopefully future lenders and equity investors for this particular project. What are those plethora of options? You've got competitive federal tax dollars You've got 4%, you've got regular tax dollars, you've got bonds, you've got tax credits, but you also have other creative financing tools that you can utilize, whether it's TIF dollars or whether it's purely land value. But none of this happens without the commitment and collaboration with our city partners. It doesn't happen without our city partners. As much as I want to develop as many affordable housing units that I think we all need, the city is a part of that process as well, which I have successfully done across 4 states, 7,000 units, of which over 14,000 households are part of my communities today, and I am happy, should we be awarded the site, to replicate the exact same thing that we've done here for you all. Thank you very much.
And we have 50+1 Sports and then Sugar Hill Community Partners to respond.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. So I'm going to let Tom ask this question, but let me just get, like a no-nonsense person, okay? Affordable housing, especially when it comes to renting, is because the owner puts it at a price point that people can't afford. Isn't that a way of looking at it? If I was Elon Musk and I wanted to give St. Pete a free area, I could put it at $1 if I didn't care about making any money, and everyone in this room could afford to live there. It's all about how much money we want to make. So before we can start looking at the city, you got to look at yourself and say, how greedy am I? Because if I really care about the citizens, the people of St. Pete, I want to put it at a rate that everyone can live there in the same place. And with the amount of money we give in the city, we can definitely sit down with the mayor and his staff and say, if we got to take a bullet and you take a bullet, let's make this affordable for everybody. Affordable housing don't mean building cheap stuff either. It's the highest quality of materials. But it all comes down to how much money, as a developer, I'm willing to make, or how much money I'm willing to give back to the community. If you don't start there, everything we're talking about is a bunch of BS. It doesn't mean anything. Houses don't charge by themselves. Someone puts a price on that house, right? Now, if you want a really intelligent answer, I'm going to give him the phone, give it to him right quick. Here you go, Tom.
Thank you. My name's Tom Demuth, and over my years of experience in development, I've done a lot of affordable housing as well. I kind of grew up in the tax credit industry. I'm not going to go into a lot of details because we can do that another time, and a lot of these regulations are very boring. So there's 2 types of tax credits that are available. There's 9% and the 4%. The 9% is a competitive process, and we will try to use that program as much as possible. Whether it's available or not is another question, but we are building this over 15 years, so it's not like we have to get all our, we're not going to use all the 9% in the first year. We're going to do it over time. And we have a few what I call enhancers that give us a better option. We're using opportunity zones. We're using the sale program that was previously mentioned. There are enhancements for energy efficiency, which we will be using, mainly the PACE program. And if we comply with that program, we get an enhancer on the tax credits. We'll create jobs as well, so we'll get an enhancer for that. If all else fails and we can't get the 9% credit, we will use the 4% credit, and we will twin the tax credit with opportunity zone funding as well. So that's kind of our plan. That's our plan. We've done this before. I don't want to bore you with the details, but we know how to do this, and we can do it, and we will do it, and we got a great partner like JLL on the capital markets side that will support us and help us in the marketplace.
Thank you. Sugar Hill Community Partners, would you like me to reread the question, or are we?
I think I'm good. Dan Coakley, PMG, one of the development partners in the affordable team with Sugar Hill. Make no mistake, financing affordable and workforce housing in this environment, like any other real estate assets, is challenging, right? Interest rates have gone up, and so you really need to call upon all your skill and experience and leverage everything that your team has done to be able to reduce these financing gaps that exist in affordable housing deals. Number one, we have done it. We've financed as a team 2,500 affordable housing units through the tax credit program with subsidy, coupling with it in the Tampa, St. Pete area over the last 10 years. It's a local, regional, and state-run business. When you're applying for tax credits, you have to go to Florida housing. So you really have to have done affordable housing in Florida to qualify for these competitive tax credits. That's number one. Number two, on the workforce side, PMG is a market rate developer and affordable developer. We look at workforce housing as basically market rate housing with lower rents. And so we're used to partnering with lenders, with equity partners, and on this particular product, we have a relationship with Bank of America, who is our partner on our Robles project in Tampa, which we're the master developer partner with the Tampa Housing Authority on, to finance workforce housing. So there are more and more programs coming out to finance workforce housing. And one of the things we're going to do to make it easier to finance is put some of those workforce units in market rate buildings. So you don't need to have a distinct, discrete workforce building to deliver workforce units. We think we can put a big component of those workforce units within market rate buildings and finance it conventionally like we finance most of our projects. And so in the spirit of sort of needing to leverage every advantage you have to minimize financing gaps, I think it's important to mention that our third development partner is the St. Pete Housing Authority, and that puts us in an extremely unique position. St. Pete Housing Authority is obviously a mission-driven organization responsible for affordable housing in St. Pete. No one is going to care more about affordable housing in St. Pete than our partner, the Housing Authority. And our partnership with them allows us to access some of their financing tools and resources to make our projects easier to finance, to fill in those gaps, access to vouchers that they control and administer. Unrestricted vouchers, vouchers for veterans, and different types of vouchers. So I guess in summary, you do have to be creative in this financing environment. You have to have done it here in Florida, which we have done. And you have to sort of look at this creatively, as both an affordable and market rate developer to really figure out how to put all this financing together. Thanks.
Thank you. Again, we have 3 questions. Our second of 3 questions revolves around community benefits. Describe your community benefits approach. What specific community benefits are you offering, and how do you intend to ensure that the benefits are delivered? For instance, local hiring, apprenticeships, small business development, and living wage jobs. Our first, Heinz and Rays, will take this one first.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica, for the question. Andrew Frazier. So as we stated earlier, the Rays and Heinz have committed $50 million as it relates to equity, intentional equity for this project, and it's broken up into several different pockets. One pocket you heard us discuss was $15 million. It's going to be associated with affordable housing off-site, and we thought that was important for a couple of reasons. You may have people that do not want to live on site, and we've already identified 10 locations across the city of St. Petersburg that can fulfill our commitment as it relates to those 600 units. One of the ones that I'm most passionate about really has to do with our enterprise development program we're calling Restorative Enterprise, as well as restorative occupancy. So this is where we take minority small businesses and put them through a series of courses that are 14 weeks. We have 300 slots available for those courses through the first 5 years of development. Our hope is that after developing this young talent, this entrepreneurial talent, that not only will they be able to work on the project, but these may be business owners that can occupy the site once phase 1 and phase 2 are complete. The other piece is talent development as we talk about our young people. We have $10 million associated towards talent development. That is putting money into the infrastructure in the South St. Pete and our educational system. We talked a little bit about the Youth Academy. We also talked about the environmental pavilion. But we also have internship opportunities for students with the developers as well as with the contractors that are sitting on this project if we're successful and if we win. Another project that we've worked on is our technical program. So this is where we're going to bring in some of the high-tech companies from the Northeast and the West Coast, where students from here can't afford to go out there to take internships, bring those companies here so the students can practice those traits right here in our backyard.
So one of the things that makes my experience very unique is I've worked for a mayor of a major urban city. I've been on major large-scale developments, and I've done projects that I own. And the one thing I can tell you is how you actually go about effectuating true economic development. When I was a minority partner on large-scale development deals, the only person that got put on was me. That's it. It was great. It was an amazing opportunity. I learned a lot. However, when I controlled my transaction, I used my bully pulpit to create opportunities for others that look like me. That's why I have a company that has over 100 people that look like me. That's why over the course of the last 2 years, we have put $60 million into black and brown businesses, mostly women-owned businesses, across the entire ecosystem of the projects that I own, I control, and I am the check writer of. Because that's a mandate that I put forth as an owner of a real estate development project. And that's how you go about making things happen, which is exactly what Heinz and Rays have recognized in my firm and our ability to do, have done, and will do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 50+1 Sports. Up next, would you like the question again? Describe your community benefits approach. What specific community benefits are you offering, and how do you intend to ensure that the benefits are delivered? For instance, local hiring, apprenticeships, small business development, and living wage jobs.
All right, thank you. So as I said earlier, I think we have the most aggressive community benefits agreement. For me, if we're going to be hiring people, and I mean, pretty much all of us are the same, it's probably going to be about 50-some thousand jobs created over these phases, but about 5,000 to 7,000 jobs that are permanent, right? But for everyone that's working, there has to be a track for those who aren't going to college or those who want to have a new skill. And if we put $10 million towards job training, right? But again, there's a big number out there that we partner with the city with that we can send out with the city to create other options. But I thought, 6 years ago, working on some major projects, that if you provided childcare, healthcare, and transportation, that is three of the biggest costs coming out of someone, a single mother, 2 kids, got on this job. Where kids got to go somewhere. I mean, you know how expensive childcare is. Transportation, luckily, this is not that far, but I've been on projects where it's 30, 40 miles away. In medical, we all know, everyone that has a business here, that most of your productivity is lost because of people being sick and people not being able to get, insurance. And if we're talking about the have and the have-nots, are we assuming that everybody has insurance? Everybody has child care? Everybody has transportation? That's like a lottery ticket if you need that. I got 4 kids. I wish somebody would have gave me free child care when I was younger. It's a lot of money. And I don't understand, and I'm lost. Because this whole project, this whole RFP was supposed to be about the future. And the future of St. Pete has to be the citizens and people making money and providing for themselves. Gentrification does not affect you if you can afford to stay where you live. It hurts you when you can't afford to stay where you live. I don't hear enough about how the people, okay, we got a ball team we love, but we got people that can partner with them. We got businesses that can partner with them. That 84, everybody's RFP has businesses. How many of those businesses are owned by women? How many of those businesses are owned by veterans? If you give people a job and allow them to hire, listen, every statistic you can find will say if you black, you 95% more to hire somebody black on your team. Like he just said, he got 100 of them, okay? That's what the whole thing is about. But you got to provide that opportunity. I'm not city. That's why I don't want to take no city money. That's why I don't like going to the federal government. Because if you ask somebody for something, you owe that person for something. I believe in putting your bootstraps and pulling them up and working. And if you want to work, and if you want a career, if we win, come over here and we'll train you. I'll work with labor unions. I don't think labor unions are too expensive. I work with everybody. Because at the end of the day, it's got to be something that we're all proud of when we drive by it. I hope that answered your question. Is there any other part that I forgot? I'm sorry.
I think you're good. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. We have Sugar Hill Community Partners. Would you like the question?
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you. Can you all hear me? There we go. Okay. David Carlock with the Machete Group. So let me start by saying I wish we had more time to address this. Our framework for community benefits is threefold. The first is engagement and outreach, learning what the community needs, figuring out who we can partner with, how we can take advantage of existing infrastructure and programs. The second is investment of time, of money, of expertise to help bring these programs to life. And then the third is accountability. This is something that Mayor Johnson described during our presentation. None of this means anything if we don't agree on what constitutes success, how we're going to measure that, and if we don't report back out to the community. So that's a critical part of how we approach all this. So let me rewind a little bit. From a community engagement standpoint, there are a lot of folks in St. Petersburg who are in need. There are also a lot of folks out there who are doing good work. A project at scale is an opportunity to bring those resources together, develop more infrastructure around delivering benefits, and to do that successfully. As it relates to specific programs, I'll touch on just a few that are in our proposal. Workforce development. What's unusual about this project is that it's very large and it's multi-phase. What that means from a workforce standpoint is you can construct a true pipeline that takes people from initial training all the way through an advanced part of their career over 10 or 12 or 15 years. And our strategy is constructed around that specific approach. This is not a snapshot. This is an opportunity to take people from very early into mid-career, providing opportunities, providing training, providing support and resources. Second, we've talked a lot about affordable housing. Significant challenge. We think we have the best team to deliver the right kind of solution. The other thing I want to touch on is wraparound services. The gentleman over there remarked on this, and we agree with him. Okay, it's not just enough to provide someone with a formal place to live. You need to help them live their life in a way that's manageable. So we've entered into a term sheet with a national nonprofit that is committed to provide free daycare on site up to 4 times the federal poverty limit. So if you qualify, we're going to provide free daycare to you. That makes an enormous difference to people who are struggling with childcare and struggling with costs associated with their family. We also have St. Pete Free Clinic on our team, and we're in discussions with Aetna CVS to provide things like free health checkups. We understand that not everybody has health insurance. That's something we can help deliver with these kinds of strategic partnerships. The other thing I want to talk about is intentional equity. That's been touched on all evening. It's a very important part of what can and should happen with the historic gas plant district. We're doing a number of things. I want to touch on a few. One is something called the Community Equity Endowment. So that was developed by a gentleman named Dan Tangerlini. He's a thought leader in public policy. He's on our team as an advisor. What this essentially means is we're giving the community a profit interest in the project. As the project does well, funds will flow to the community. We estimate that over the first 20 years of the project, that'll be worth $60 million in benefit. And that will not be managed by us. That will be managed by community representatives. A third of that is going to be used to help fund our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And that $20 million will be used to close the gap on affordable housing in South St. Pete. If you sit down with Habitat and you say, how can we help you the most? What they will say is, we come up a little bit short on a lot of projects. We're 20,000 short, we're 40,000 short, we're 50,000 short. Can you be our partner who can close that gap? And so we have earmarked that $20 million to do that. That will make the difference between about 300 homes being developed and not developed. That translates into about $250 million worth of home equity. That is generational wealth that was lost when the historic gas plant district was wiped out, okay? This is only a small step in the right direction, but that's the kind of approach that we think is going to make the right kind of difference, have the right kind of impact on this project. We also have a significant amount of support, another $20 million coming out of the CEE to support small businesses. So we have a program called Mentor to the Mainstream, where all the firms on our team will mentor an individual or mentor a small business. We've all benefited from that, right? Someone who took an interest in our career and helped us level up. So we are committed to that from an institutional standpoint as a team. We have an MBE Merchant Plus program, which is providing grants, advice, other kinds of support to small businesses, discounted leases, more flexible leases, pop-up opportunities. And the last piece is co-investment. So we have partnered with a group that's called smallchange.co. They democratize real estate investment. That means that anybody in this room can invest with us in this project. You do not need to be an accredited investor. You can invest for as little as $500, and you can be side by side with our investment partners in this deal. And you get the opportunity to, again, create generational wealth for you and your family. We believe that there should be access for everybody on this project in all the respects that I described and many others. We encourage you to check us out online or elsewhere to learn more about our programs.
Thank you. Restoration Associates, would you like the question?
Okay, so I'll time myself here. There's three aspects to the question, and I think the first is infrastructure. And we're proposing to lift off this site all that surface parking, and that's going to require federal funds, and we have to get to work doing that. What's that going to take? It's going to take building a consensus of elected officials. It's going to take stakeholders, and it's going to take you, the public. If we are a united community, we will attract the federal dollars. That is the big difference maker. It's not getting caught up in the bureaucracy up in Washington, D.C. We've heard a lot of say, well, you're delivering yourself to the federal bureaucracy up in Washington to create that intermodal transit solution. That's not true. What you can do is the major factor after studying this and the experiences in Tampa and Clearwater that are ahead of St. Petersburg application process is to get a community united behind removing that 175 obstruction and turning that into a parking structure, a mixed-use development that will take all that surface parking off and turn this into a transit-oriented development. That is the first aspect of it. The second aspect is community endowment, equity endowment funds. And where's that going to come from? We have an established history. And if you look at who our team consists of philanthropists and local stakeholders that are going to make $100 million available out of first cash flow over the next 20 years. That's not about, guessing about it or committing to it. We have a proven record for doing that. So that's the second aspect of it. The third aspect of it is where do those funds go and how are they distributed? We think, and it's our policy, that it's not the developer who determines how those funds are distributed. That really is the role of elected officials. Developers should not be targeting and determining worthy causes. And maybe we're sensitive to it because we live under the Sunshine Law here in the state of Florida, where there is transparency, where public meetings are noticed, and when funds are distributed, particularly from a project like this that is using public dollars, you cannot target those based on favoritism or whatever you may be doing. I think that our policy is that those funds will be distributed in accordance with the mayor's decision and elected officials. So the three aspects of CEE and community outreach and benefit, again, are infrastructure and the funding of infrastructure and how it gets done. It's the consensus building. And I'm going to say a little bit that I've had that experience, and let's just say I was able to get the consensus of 28 of 30 elected officials on the other side of the bay when doing the comprehensive plan. That's about public hearings. That's about announced public hearings. And it's the same thing with the disbursement of community endowment equity funds, the CEE funds. How that gets distributed is really consensus. It's transparency. And it's not and should not be the discretion of the developers. And the last thing I want to say again is that we're committed to outreach. We're committed as local stakeholders who, in fact, have every capability of delivering this project as larger entities may appear. We, in fact, every one of the team members is a specialist and has delivered a project as big or larger than the projects on the 86 acres. Each one of those projects will hire locally. They will in fact, we have a 6-acre site that is for job training and it's for incubators, small businesses. We want to support the small business and the minority business enterprises in this area. Our team, by the way, is made up of 75% of those.
And I just wanted to quickly add that, you know, it's, in my experience, community benefit agreements are usually presented to us by the local community, by the local government. So my point in making this statement is that we want to provide the benefits that you want. So we could tell you, but as Bill said, we think it's better to establish this endowment in a way that allows participation by the public and by officials who are responsible to the public to ensure that you get what you want as a benefit.
Thank you. Our final question revolves around St. Pete culture. How does your project fit in with the culture and uniqueness that makes St. Pete special? What would you say to a, quote, local like me to encourage support of your project? And starting off 50+1 Sports.
So about a year and a half ago, about a year ago, we had a team come down from DC, and they're young, probably about 24, 25, 26 years old. And they spent 4 days going to Rays games and walking the streets of Central Avenue here in St. Pete. And they did about 300 video interviews. And a lot of the information, you know, we actually got back. And for me, you know, I took that information, like I said, I've been here for a year and a half, over 100 days, you know, coming here once a week. And I've tried to eat everywhere I could. I've tried to shop everywhere I could, and I've talked to so many business owners and just walking down the street. And I feel like I kind of understand St. Pete. You know, St. Pete is, when I first came here, I didn't know it was that deep in the arts. But I mean, you know, everyone here, I mean, everywhere you go, you see art, you know? So for us, I think we should work with the city to have some programs for art. But I also feel like St. Pete could be that place where we can really excel. That's why in our design, you see our design is really kind of, we try to copy a lot of the art that we see around the community, right? And we tried to make it that center place to where everyone could come together. But I can personally say as the person that we will have as many community meetings as we have to, and I think we'll also, I feel comfortable putting a product on the table that you guys can be proud of. If you came to me tonight, I just gave you my cell number. That's the way I roll. I don't do business cards. You want to talk to me, call me. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for you guys, and we'll do everything we can. We'll put all the resources behind it, but I think we'll have a perfect project for St. Pete. And I think any local that thinks I missed the mark, come up and tell me that. I got tough skin. It ain't personal. This is your home, okay? I'm just visiting. But I want you guys to adopt me so we can actually come here and feel like we're really a part of it.
Thank you. Sugar Hill Community Partners is next for that question. Would you like me to read it again? How does your project fit in with the culture and uniqueness that makes St. Pete special? What would you say to a, quote, local like me to encourage support of your project?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out. We want to especially thank, Mayor Ken Welch for the courage and the boldness that he has shown in igniting this type of project. I think that is a good example, a great example of the culture of St. Petersburg in 2023, and that's extremely important. This morning, we met with the Times editorial board, and I shared with them what it was like growing up here in St. Petersburg during the era of segregation. Segregated neighborhoods, segregated schools, segregated workplaces. My father worked for the city of St. Petersburg at the gas plant. I worked for the St. Petersburg Housing Authority for 11 years and was part of the agency when Laurel Park was sold. I was involved in helping to relocate residents from Laurel Park. And I understand the cultural impact as well as the economic impact of that entire process. After 11 years working for the St. Petersburg Housing Authority, I ran for 11 years as a CEO, a private, nonprofit organization that was involved in neighborhood revitalization, affordable home ownership development, and home ownership promotion. On our board, we work very closely with the city of St. Petersburg because these kinds of projects cannot happen successfully without a broad range of partnerships. So for an example, the head of the city of St. Petersburg Housing and Community Development Department served on our board. We looked at the LDRs, land development regulations. What do you have to do to change those kinds of things? Rezoning. All of that is part and parcel of how you deliver those affordable housing units. We partnered with Habitat for Humanities. We partnered with Warwick Dunn Foundation. We partnered with Bank of America Community Development Division. Again, it takes those kinds of creative approaches and broad partnerships in order to make these kinds of things happen. It takes dedication and conscientiousness. It takes listening to and working with the community. I served on the city's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for several years. We worked out in the community with pastors and others. So in terms of culture, what the culture requires in order to make these kinds of relationships and partnerships and long-term development activities work, you have to know the city. And you have to understand the sentiment, including this deep sense of resentment. For example, we worked one point with the Rays when I first moved here. The strongest impact that the Rays have had, in my experience, and I'm born and raised here, was when Fred McGriff, what they call it, something dog, you remember Fred McGriff? Crime dog, played for the Rays. How long was that? Very short period of time. And so how is it that you expect that you're going to generate broad community support for the team, and we hope that they stay here, we want them to stay. How will you generate broad community support for the team unless that team succeeds in connecting with this local community? Some of us remember what happened with the Bucks when Doug Williams left. Some of you remember that, and the sentiment, and how people felt, and how the support for that team fell off. So that's an important part of the underlying dynamics of the culture here in St. Petersburg. There are many things that we could go on to talk about. We're involved with attorney Tamara Felton Howard, Gypsy Gallardo, and some others in negotiating and bringing into existence the City of St. Petersburg's existing community benefits agreement. We know the intricacies and the details of that and the requirements. So the thing that I would say, first of all, this is a project that has local or municipal, but also countywide and regional impact. It has to be approached with that understanding. That's, again, part of the underlying culture in order for this project to succeed. Secondly, it will require broad creativity and partnerships, established of a wide range of partnerships in order to make it happen. We were working with the city and with minority contractors years ago to establish a Minority Contractors Association. You have to identify them, you have to help support them, you have to make sure that they have the mentorship opportunities. I worked to help establish Job Corps here, walking distance, 5 blocks from this site. And so we've talked about how we work to develop mentorships and other kinds of opportunities with the Job Corps. I could go on, but again, we're excited about this, we're glad to be a part of it. I personally think this is the best team, the strongest team, but whether we get it or not, we're going to work with everyone to make sure that this project succeeds for the benefit of all of us. Thank you. I want to hand it off to Bob.
Thank you. Restoration Associates.
Again, the question goes back to the cultural history of the gas plant district and making it recognizable at the very heart of our project. And I invite all of you to look at it. We placed an African-American cultural museum in a memorial park right on Booker Creek. And that is a critical identity of the community, and we've got a symbol for that. So that $25 to $50 million would be part of the grant that we would apply for at the federal level as part of funding of the Intermodal Center. So specifically, how are we doing this? We're tying the neighborhood back together by creating underpasses on that Intermodal Center that are ceremonial, that are 100 feet wide, that reconnect up the north side and the south side. We cannot pass on that opportunity to get that federal funding. It's critically important that the whole project be tied together in this fashion. So we're uniting the community, not dividing it. We're uniting it, not dividing it. The second part of it, and we haven't mentioned this, is the Marriott level development that accompanies that park-like development. 900 rooms with a Marriott qualified developer of a local origins here. So, with that comes jobs, with that comes more identity and more recognition of the neighborhood and the cohesiveness of it. And I also want to say that all of this is not going to happen unless this stadium issue is resolved and the funding identified. And this doesn't mean promises. This means where is the money going to come from? Otherwise, all these plans are put on hold once again, as they have been for the last 14 years. I want to reemphasize the fact we are not asking for taxpayers to pay any tax charges for upgrades to the 86 acres or redevelopment of it. It's tax neutral. And we've identified $600 million to make changes to that stadium, which has now become part of the whole picture. Now you may look at that as an extension or a Band-Aid, but it is a solution that has to be on the table. It has to be looked at as an option, and we're providing that option.
St. Pete is not monolithic. When I come here, and I come here often because I have a couple of sisters who live here, and they live a little farther out toward the west, but we meet in downtown St. Pete because I'm coming over from Tampa. And I come here a lot for that reason, and there's so much here that is, to me, different and exciting to be around. The smaller businesses that have been allowed to remain in the core of the downtown, retail establishments, restaurants, the water right there, the completely redone pier, Vinoy Park, all of these things are part of St. Pete. And the green spaces and what we're trying to do in eliminating surface parking and using green transit is to tap into that, the natural beauty that's here. But at the core of this, at the heart of this, as Bill has said, is the history of what happened on this site and the neighborhood that was destroyed and the other neighborhoods that were cut off by the construction of I-175. We want that to go away. We want to turn that back. We want to open this up again and integrate that neighborhood and what it used to be in with today's St. Pete so that we have something that's welcoming to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final 5-minute response, Heinz Rays.
Thank you, Erica. And I don't need you to repeat the question. I think I fully understand it.
Yes,
and
yes.
I understood it to be about culture and about involving young people in the process. So I would like to specifically address your question. Culture is more than just art. It's history, it's heritage. It's more than about the past. It's also about the present and the future. And if we're going to include that, then we must include young people. And I think you've heard us talk about the Youth Academy that will be at Campbell Park. I think you've heard us talk about other ways that we plan to involve young people. We see this as intergenerational, because it will go way beyond the people who are in this room today. It will go way beyond me. And so when we look at this, we see engaging the community in helping us determine how we're going to embrace and preserve the culture, history, and heritage of our community. At our descendants and former residents dinner, Candy McDonald said what was most important to her is that we do not forget about the people who lived there and about the stories that they have to tell. Those stories are important. The way we forge our future is by truly understanding our past. And so this is a combination of embracing the past, and we will do it many ways, through the Woodson African American Museum of Florida, through heritage trails, through music, through all kinds of presentations, videos, but it's not just about the past. It's also about the future. And the way we plan to move forward with that, as I said before, is to engage young people. Our community conversations will be open to that. Many of our activities as we move forward in planning, we will be inviting the community and specific populations in the community, including young people. You said young like you, and we're thinking young like you and even younger. I know that some of our other team members would like to address this question, but I wanted to specifically answer how we plan to engage younger people in the process.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Thank everyone for sticking around. We appreciate it. I think most of you are related to one of us at some way or another at this point, but that's great. Want to compliment Fred McGriff, the crime dog, on just getting elected to the Hall of Fame, but come back out. We've been to the postseason 3 straight years. We've got an incredible team. You got to check it out. Second World Series just a couple years ago, and we're awfully proud of that. And we're really proud of the Rays. This city is a proud, progressive city that makes space for everyone, and we're part of that. The Rays have been part of that. We were the only team in professional sports to stand up in favor of marriage equality when that issue went before the Supreme Court. And after we signed on, only 2 other teams ever joined. We were the only organization in Tampa Bay that publicly called for the removal of the Confederate monument from the steps of the Hillsborough County Courthouse. We received accolades for our Black Lives Matter statements in the wake of the George Floyd murder. We have been there. We work with Creative Pinellas to develop an artist print series, paying the artists to provide Tampa Bay Rays posters throughout our stadium. I share all this again because it is who we are. It's endemic to this team. And most importantly for this particular project, we appreciate the legacy of the gas plant neighborhood, something that we have been learning about and learning about far too late, admittedly, in the process. We take this RFP incredibly seriously. But we also recognize that this is step 1 in what will be a 20-year process. We will continue listening to our stakeholders, to our neighbors, to our community members every single step along the way. There is time for feedback, and there is absolutely, as Monty mentioned, time to include so many members of every one of these teams in this process. I want to finish by saying I know I speak for all the teams when I say let's thank our city staff, our caterers, and the mayor again for running an incredible process. And again, we appreciate every single one of the citizens for coming out and hearing what we all have to say today.
Thank you. If I could have all the developers stand, we're going to close. It's been a great presentation. If you can stand so that our, thank you guys for staying. Oh my goodness, long time. If I could, Mayor Welch mentioned this during his remarks, but just to remind everyone, a decision will be made and announced before the end of this month. So this is an urgent process. We're so thankful to your participation and for your input. And again, you have until January 23rd if you want to go on stpete.org/gasplant to continue giving feedback once you get the chance to let this marinate in your mind overnight and for the next few nights. So thank you very much for being here with us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.